Hey, good morning. What is up, Patreon peeps? It's Rich. It is kind of early. Oh, the birds were chirping outside. I was giving them a beat to chirp in, but they didn't. Speaking of birds, look what I got. I broke out this is the Court of Owls Absolute Edition. I bought this. I got it on eBay. And, honestly, in my opinion, at least artistically, and the story's really good too. Um, I think that this is one of the coolest books that's come out in the last 10 years. Greg Capullo really brought it. It was a perfect storm of everything. But just generally speaking, man, Greg's stuff is really, really fun to look at. And I think that he really kind of understands um, like the level of detail that a comic needs and just all the nuts and bolts. So give me one sec. I'm going to pause this and open this like slide it out of the dust covered thing that it's in, and we'll look at some pages. All right, hold on. Okay, I'm back. All right, so yeah, big thick hardcover. It comes in that slipcase thing. Beautiful, beautiful reproductions in the book. I mean, it's really gorgeous. Uh, Quality wise, I've talked about this in a few videos. I was a little tiny bit disappointed with the actual quality of the book itself. There were pages that weren't separated, meaning that like they were like they had never been cut or something like that, or they were stuck together. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, it was a little disappointing because I got like halfway through the book and there was a bunch of pages that were like ripped or just something funky. But all right, so let's get to the art. All right, so we'll start at the first issue and we'll hop around. Oh, I might do like a 15-minute video of this because this stuff is well worth checking out. But yeah, so Scott Snyder wrote this, Greg drew it, and look, any big event at any comic book company is going to get a ton of hype. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's what these companies want to do. They want to sell books, and so any event, they really promote, and sometimes they deliver, sometimes they don't. I think that a lot of times comic companies now, in particular, tend to rest on crossovers and teams fighting teams. I personally am not a fan of those type of books. I don't like team books. That much. And it's not that I'm anti-team book, but teams generally fight teams, and so what you end up having is you have way too much stuff on each page. Nobody gets what I consider a proper amount of screen time, and the stories ultimately kind of end up kind of being, really nothing. It's you. I think with more thoughtful use of a team book, you can do more interesting things. But anyway, so let's look at these layouts. Really, really beautiful layout on this. Nice, long, tall panels. Great design. I mean, right here we're looking through a chain link fence. Kind of like McFarlane tropes. I hate to use the word tropes. I honestly don't even know what it means, but I think that that's the right use of it. But Greg worked on Spawn for a long time and learned from Todd, who really, really pushed sort of the three-dimensionality of comic books in a really, really fun way. It's why he's still one of my favorite comic book artists. But Greg kind of took that ball and ran with it, and I I mentioned James in my other video, but I've talked to James about this, and if you're going to be influenced by someone, ultimately the responsibility kind of falls on your shoulders to sort of bring things to another level. They talk about each generation sort of standing on the shoulders of the previous, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're just standing on their shoulders. The idea is that you take it higher and move it further. It's they're not just there to sort of be a benchmark, but it's like Greg now has done that for a new generation of people, and you have someone like Victor Bogdanovic who's inspired by Greg's work clearly, but now the responsibility falls on Vic to go beyond what Capullo did in some way. So there's a responsibility for each new generation to take what's been done in the past and re-envision it. But yeah, the stuff is just great. I mean, like I love this work. I love the energy of it. I love the personality of it. It the storytelling is super duper cool. He picks cool angles. It's just all good. It's really, really fun. Um, He is, I believe, going back on Batman again to do another run. He completed Metal and is now moving into something new. So it'll be fun to see how it goes. I think the longer you stay on a title and characters, there is definitely, I think, a clock that ticks in terms of like, fans think that they want to see you on it forever, and I can't picture Greg doing anything cooler than Batman. But at some point, you've kind of pulled all your tricks out of the bag, and you can only go back to that well, 50 times or 100 times or whatever it is. And some artists have done longer runs on single titles, but at some point, I mean, it actually would be really fun to see him attack another character. In my book, I think that Greg could really do something killer with Wolverine. That's the one character that I go. I think that with a really good writer, him doing a run on like a Wolverine book that maybe dabbles into the X-Men to some extent, but more focuses on some adventures for Wolverine, I think would just be great. I think Greg would crush it. So, you know, not 100% sure superhero teams and for my taste, like my favorite thing to see him draw. He's really good with like kind of gritty sort of male characters. But yeah, so we'll move to some of the deeper stories. Let's see what we got here. I love this the model in Bruce's like study or something. Man, it's such a great shot. But again, going back to, I consider that I have a lot of like learners and people that are drawing either for fun or trying to break in. And I'm sure that there's people that have done professional work too that follow this stuff. But again, when you look at these pages and then picture like any kind of drawing book that you might be working out of to like learn drawing, it's not gonna really completely prepare you to do stuff like this. So you always want to blend the two at some point. Again, if you really can't draw hands and feet or someone running or that kind of stuff, you definitely should work on that first. It'll definitely make trying to lay out pages or trying to do pages better. But once you get a decent hang of it, it's very, very difficult to prepare for this stuff completely. So. And I would suggest really, really immersing yourself. Like, get a focus of where you want to go with your work, and then, just like go directly towards that. Whatever it takes to learn the look that you have in your head, just be really aggressive with going for it. And, it was weird. So like I'm on YouTube all day while I'm working. So most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, I'm just listening to music or guys talking about guitar or people giving guitar lessons. I like I said, it's a nice break for me from focusing on art 100% of the time. But then I always, in my mind, those guitar lessons just turn into art lessons for me. That's how I do it. Is if some guy's teaching someone how to do a certain thing on the guitar, I just go like, well, what would that be drawing wise? And it works great for me. It really does. I get so many ideas, and it improves my work, and I think it'll ultimately give me a pretty unique approach to comics. And look, there's a musicality and rhythm to like laying out pages. It's very musical. It's all about beats and spaces and excitement, and then pulling back. Like, it can't all be one sort of dynamic, or there's no dynamics. But this is just some advice for you all. There is so much shitty art instruction online, especially on YouTube. It's just like, for people that aren't making it, they go to YouTube and they set up channels, and some of them do pretty good. And look, there are really, really talented people on YouTube that are giving advice, but really kind of be wary of it. I saw a channel the other day. They had like almost 10,000 subscribers on it, and they're talking about like the fastest way to get great at drawing. And so I looked both of the two artists up that sort of host the site. They both were average at best. Neither one of them had really done any professional work. And here they are. They're telling you how to be great. They're not even close to being great themselves. And look, I mean, everything's fair game, and I've done it a bazillion times too, where I'm giving advice on stuff that I don't do well, or something like that. So it's not like I'm oblivious to the contradictory functionality of it all. But look, when you find someone on YouTube that's giving you advice on drawing, go look up their stuff. Not the stuff that they're showing you on YouTube, but Google them and see how much you can find. That's the other thing is, I'll see artists that are like da 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 da, like this, that, and the other, and you look them up and you can find like 12 drawings that they've done online, and you're like, well, how does this even make sense? Like Google a professional artist that's worked for a couple of years and see how much work comes up when you search for their name. That's a tell right there. If someone's trying to tell you how to get work or whatever, I mean, if you just want to get YouTube hits, I mean, this is my opinion too on this, and it's going to be a bit of a blanket statement. The biggest YouTube followings that follow drawing channels, I don't think that most of those artists are very good. I won't say the names of them, but there's a couple that have like over 1 million followers. None of them are really that impressive. And again, what's their resume for published work? What it was is that they started doing drawing videos on YouTube 7 years ago. So there was a sweet spot where if you kind of got in on YouTube and you were doing something about, I'd say 7 years back is about when you see generally. It was kind of more like the wild frontier. You could stake your claim quicker, and more people would ultimately find it, just because YouTube in general was not as gigantic as it is now. And then you have the influx of like everybody starts to do it, and it gets really diluted. And and then look at the motives of what the people on YouTube that are giving you the artistic advice. Like, what's the draw? Are they trying to get you to go to their site and sign up for more lessons, and they give part of the lessons online, or you know what I mean? So just be wary of it. And again, that's where sort of your focus and direction will give you strength to be able to make the right call on the advice. I mean, I think any advice, I look at it like this. If I watch a 10-minute video of someone that draws worse than me, but they actually are able to give me one little bit of information that maybe I go, you know what, that might actually be an interesting thing to try, I think it's worth it, and I respect that. So, again, I'm not like shitting on all these people's channels, but I just sometimes go, oh, man, this is a little dangerous for people that are trying to go out there and like learn to draw, because again, it's like someone sitting at home and trying to break into comics, or does fan cons a couple of times a year, and they go on YouTube and they get 30 or 40,000 followers, and then now they're giving art advice. It's a little like, oh man. So just be selective with where you're learning. Make sure it's coming from good sources. I always recommend Anthony Jones, Robot Pencil. I think like even if you don't want to draw like him, Anthony is a pro that's done a lot of work, and he gives out what I consider pretty good advice. And again, advice versus art lessons. I mean, Proco has got a very good drawing channel, and he's very educated in terms of like drawing anatomy and stuff like that, but I don't know how much professional career advice he could give, except for how to make a successful YouTube channel, because I'm not 100% sure he's burning up the art world with his personal work. So I think that's why the focus is more on YouTube, and I'm sure he sells his paintings and portraits and stuff that he does, but I think his strength is actually that he understands how to break down figure drawing quite well, and then that's kind of what he offers as an artist. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's why, for me, I really was like, you know what, this isn't what I want to do. My goal isn't to be like an art teacher on YouTube. My goal is to be, a badass artist that's producing, professional work, stuff that's getting published, and doing stories, and getting that stuff out there. And that's really, really what I want to do. And I love, meeting people and helping people, but at the same time, it's like, I think it's very difficult to do both effectively, um, especially when you're trying to get in. That's a great shot right there. But it was just it was I was starting to see myself, I think, splinter a bit, and there's all these theories on kind of like what you focus on is what you'll sort of ultimately get. So it's like if you focus on, I want to build a YouTube channel and I'm going to do all these lessons, and if I can get Patreon going and people supporting me on Patreon, with the lessons that I provide, it could really help me, do this thing. But then it's like, well, what was the thing that you were originally like going to do? Man, the background's crazy. Oh, it's a photo. I was gonna say that would suck to draw all that and then have it knocked out like that. But yeah, so it's like, I think how I'll approach Patreon like next year will be, I'll actually have really, finished work, and I can just show the process of what it is, that kind of thing, where it's like you see the result and the pieces, and it's more like that than just sort of encouraging people, and not that I wouldn't encourage people, but what I mean is like the uniqueness of my channel ultimately wasn't really that interesting, I think, for people. Like it just never hit, it never clicked. It's like people don't want to hear the truth, that it's going to be hard. um it's kind of it's just the reality of it. Like when people say comics is a lot of work, it's a sentence that you've heard like a million times, and it ultimately ends up meaning nothing. It's just it's like you might as well say that vanilla is the most popular flavor of ice cream. But comics is a lot of work, and when I say it's a lot of work, it's a lot of fucking work. Okay, I can draw for 10 hours a day, I can draw for 15 hours a day. That's still not as hard as drawing comics is, if that makes sense. It gets easier as you go along, but look, you can sit and you can work on stuff and draw all day, but the amount of mental juice that it takes to like lay out a page like this and then draw it and have it, completed, and generally the it's expected in a day. That's hard. And then to get up the next morning and go like, now I gotta like get this one going, and I don't know how to draw gargoyles, or I don't have reference for this or that. It's a lot of planning. It's kind of a multi-tier thing. So I'm not trying to scare you, but at the same time, really really realize that it is a lot of work. A piece like this is a lot of work. That's why these guys are so celebrated, guys and girls, because it is challenging, and it's it's hard. It's hard stuff. But the reward of being able to do this, I think, pays for itself. Imagine being able to draw pages like this. And then look, the thing is, if you just draw for fun, man, you're in the best situation ever, because you can pull out the cool stuff from comic books and do it in your sketchbooks, or do it for friends and family, or just do it for yourself, pencil, ink, and color or something, or copy a piece in a comic book. And it's really, really rewarding, and you won't have to necessarily deal with the brutality of the deadlines and being forced to draw things that you don't want to do, and all that. It's still interesting to me. I think it's really exciting, but it can be like how would I put it? Well, there's so many different types of comics. I mean, the real key, okay, depending on how you want to get your stuff out there. If you just want to do your own books, that's one thing, and you don't really care about making a living doing it, then you can really go any direction you want. But like, if you want to get hired by one of the top 6 companies that produce comics and will really get your work seen by thousands of people, the best bet is to really look at the current stuff that they're publishing. I think that's really important because it's easy to be a fan of something that came out 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and not really be contemporary with your voice. And regardless of where you want to take your stuff, this was a little trick I did, and I'll leave you guys and girls with this. Um, when I was trying to get work at Wildstorm, I didn't have a style yet. I had only been inking for barely a year, if that. And just coincidentally, the inker that I had met was a brush inker. So I'd learned to ink with a brush. And so when I took my samples to Wildstorm, they had kind of a house style that was, based on probably two of their inkers, which would be Scott Williams, and then Alex Garner was coming into his own at that point. The editor in chief looked at my stuff and he said, "Well, this isn't really what we do. Your stuff is a little too brushy." And so, I was like, fair enough. I was a fan of the Wildstorm look and all that. So I went home and I did, a new set of samples, and I used the Hunt 102, which I had, but had gotten pretty comfortable with a brush, so I was using that more, with like more buttery feathering and that kind of thing. And I had always drawn with rapidographs as a kid, so that was kind of my two styles, was this fine line thing that I did, and then the brushy thing. And so anyway, after, I don't know, somewhere between 3 and 5 months, I got good enough with a Hunt 102 that they ended up hiring me to assist Alex Garner initially, and then I got an internship really, really quickly afterwards, like maybe a month or something. It couldn't have even been less. But the moral of the story is, within 3 months of me working pro, I was already starting to head back to the way that I really wanted to ink. So do whatever it takes to break in and get those first gigs and get sort of like a pulse with a company, with an editor, and don't change on a dime, but you know what I mean? You can slowly kind of start like I don't know, you draw eyes a little big, or you try to do these really dynamic shots, and we like more mellow storytelling. We're going for something more 6 panels on a page and everything. They don't want to see something like this, maybe like big splashy or images. You have to just kind of start sneaking it in, start making your panels a little bigger, start making the shots of the characters a little bigger, and then once you've got enough fans that really like what you do, and especially with social media now, I mean, it's a really, really powerful tool, because you get feedback right away and your peers see it. So if you start posting stuff that's more dynamic and it's getting tons of likes and people are going like, why don't you do this in the comics? I mean, there you go. You show it to your editor and go, look, this is what people want to see from me. Let's go this route. So we have a lot of advantages and sort of little aces up our sleeve that we can use now that years ago you didn't. And I don't know, who was it? Oh, Mike Mignola, in one of his interviews, was talking about Marvel, while he was there, put down a mandate, and this, coming from Mignola, who spots black everywhere, that they created a rule that if you were going to put black in your backgrounds, you couldn't have black on your figures, or vice versa. It had to be one or the other. And Mike was, obviously not a fan of that approach. This whole style is based on positive and negative, black and white, and so stuff like that. There can be little rules like in the house that I don't even know of right now. You know what I mean? Like, as an inker, I don't really know what the editors say directly to the penciler. I'm a part of the email chain, but that doesn't mean that the phone calls are direct emails that they send back and forth on the side, or whatever whatever you call it. Like, their direct communication isn't more structured, or just that the feedback that they're getting from the editor is coming from above, where they're like, hey, this is the direction we're going. That guy can't be drawing Batman that way. And you'll see people that get away with stuff, like, as an example, like, maybe DC really wants Batman's ears short right now, but you draw the long ears, and you go, well, Kelly Jones draws the long ears, so I should be okay. But you never know when just that artist is allowed to do it, and their book is out of continuity, so you don't have to really follow that rule. But yeah, you never kind of know what's going on. So anyway, I'll leave you with that, and I hope that this was inspirational. And again, just be careful on YouTube. I think there's a lot of people that mean well, but I really, and what's funny is the channel that I was talking about with the two guys that do it. I actually really like their channel, but I just think that they were really going well beyond, like, their titles sounded great, but coming from their level of achievement and ability was like, they were way overshooting sort of what they were going to be able to offer. But I still enjoy listening to their videos. But you know what I mean? It's like YouTube is kind of littered littered with that. So you just want to be careful where you're learning from, because everybody's got there, and you can see when channels give up. Like, I haven't posted a video in 2 years, and they're just like, fuck it. Like, we used every hot trick in the book to try to get subscribers, and it didn't work. But that should be a tell too. And then, like I said, just Google them. Google their work and see what their actual finished pieces look like, and not what they're posting on YouTube. And again, I mean, you've got what I consider, like, they're going to be YouTube lifers now, where it's like they'll just sit and digitally paint heads and show you how to digitally paint heads forever, because that's really kind of all they're comfortable doing. And they might not be able to work in a structured environment like a comic book company, or even a toy company or something like that, where they get a script of some sort, like, hey, we love your stuff, we see you painting all these heads on YouTube, and we need heads, but like, can you do them, we need Barbie heads that are cute. And the artist is like, I can't do that. That's not how I draw or paint. So know your goals. That's so great. Man, the colors on this page are just really nice too. Okay, have a great day. I'm sure I will do at least one more video before the end of the month. And then again, I would just suggest wait on Patreon until like next year, January, February. I should be back, and people will kind of know more what I'm up to. But things are going good. And I'm going to spend the full day today working on my own stuff, which is exciting. It puts me in the red in terms of time the rest of the week. But I think that these long days are healthy for me, and it's like I'm trying to sacrifice everything for this. It's really like, when people hear the real story of what's going on, they're gonna like, oh God, wow, man, dude, you really dug deep. And I have, but the whole thing will be revealed later. All right, talk to y'all later. And don't forget to smash the like, and please comment. I do check the comments on these videos. So if you want to create a dialogue or have any sort of feedback or whatever, let me know. All right, beautiful shot right there, man. It's great. So good. Okay, bye.